very well by. I mean, I must admit that, but I think it takes time to get a side together. You know, I mean, looking at my old club Tottenham, and the reason why I say they'll do better than what Manchester City will do this season is because last season they won a cup. They won the Carling Cup. The manager has now made a huge change in players and brought players in again. So we're starting from scratch again for the players that Juan de Ramos wants, not the players that Martin Jol had before him. So he's brought players in now, and then that's going to be exactly the same as what Mark Hughes is going to have to do. You know, he's done very, very well by bringing the players in that he's bought already, but you can't just throw sort of 12 players in that you don't know and make them into a good team. It doesn't work. The closest example to that, I suppose, is people turn around and say, well, Jose Mourinho in his first season won the championship. Yes, he did, but if you remember the season before he had the job, Ranieri had finished second in the Premiership. So he didn't add a great deal to it. Manchester City last season, I think they were about 9th, weren't they, in the table, which was as good as they'd done for years. Now they've got a wonderful opportunity come January with billionaires over and over that they can go and spend. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to buy them, the championship or the top 4.
Kevin Parker is hanging on your every word, Alan. Kevin, turning to you now then, as Alan said, essentially you're starting from scratch. We haven't even seen Robinho play in the Premier League so far. So many new players to look at as well. Why do you think you can finish in the top 4 come the end of this season?
Well, I don't think there are that many new players at City. I mean, in terms of competing against Spurs, we've signed Robinho, they've signed Fraser Campbell on loan, so, as a starting point, the Spurs are out of the picture anyhow. But in the first half of last season, under Sven, we finished in the top 4 at the end of December. Now, we've got a better squad than that. We've got Sean Wright-Phillipson, we've got Robinho, we've got Joe.
But they didn't finish the season, didn't finish till, April, May. Yeah. You can't say in December you're in the top 4.
They fell away and they've now got a better squad. They've got a much better squad.
Of course you've got a better squad. You've added more players to it. And so have Tottenham as well got a better squad than what they had last year.
So why would Tottenham's squad work better than ours when we
Because they were a better team than what Manchester City were last season. Yes, they were. They won a trophy.
On what basis?
They
won a trophy over 6 games, but they weren't better than us. How can you say they're better than us when we finished higher than them?
They finished higher than
Your argument is flawed, Alan. Alan, your argument is flawed.
Your argument's flawed. You never heard so much right. I was listening to one of your ex-players yesterday on a radio station, Mike Summerby, who I admire greatly, and he was saying, it's wonderful that this has happened. We're now in a new era. Yes, you are in a new era because you've been struggling with the other lot up the road, for years and years and years to compete with them. So what you've got now is you've got billionaires coming in that can throw huge sums of money at it, and it does, I must admit, give you a much, much better chance than what you've had previously.
But isn't the problem here, Alan, and Kevin as well, that there's an assumption that even with all this money, that there's an inexhaustible amount of top-class players who are all going to come to your club?
That's exactly right. They're not available. And the gentleman who now owns the football club, he said, well, they want to buy Torres. Well, Liverpool don't want to sell him. They want to buy Fabregas. Arsenal don't want to sell him. They want to buy this, they want to buy that. It doesn't mean...
if they throw silly money at them, people will sell.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen, Vicky. It doesn't happen like that, just because the man has got huge sums of money.
Come on then, Kevin, come in.
If I'd have said to you on Sunday evening that Manchester City will sign Robinho on Monday, you'd have laughed us out of the place.
Absolutely, now, because he said he wanted to go to Chelsea.
It doesn't matter who he said he wanted to go to.
Of course he did. He said he wanted to go to London to play for Chelsea.
Yeah, he did.
That's how loyal he was to going to Chelsea from Real Madrid.
We're not talking about... And on that basis, we can persuade other players to come to Manchester City.
Of course you can. They're money grabbers, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I'm not defending that for 1 minute, but you're saying that Fabregas wouldn't leave Arsenal. Arsenal haven't won a trophy for 3 seasons. If Arsenal don't win another trophy this season, why would he not consider coming to a club that might have finished in the top 4, that might have won another trophy by then? Why would he not consider that?
Well, he wouldn't consider it because he's at a better football club in Arsenal. So what do you think? Can City stay in the top 4? What can they do to get in the top 4? Just because you're going to buy new players?
No, I think that Mark Hughes had started with a very good... Forget Robinho for a moment. I think we as fans were optimistic that this season Mark Hughes could finish in the top 6. And that was with the money that we didn't have. Now, since the start of the season, we've signed Robinho. That might help us move up another place, let's say, to the top 5. Now, come January, if we are in the top 5 or 6 of the Premiership, come January, and we can persuade another 2 perhaps players to come to
It's a
us.
lovely little word there, which was if we're there. That's what.
Well, of course
that's the most important thing of all. Remember that football clubs over the years, Alec Ferguson has done it time and time and time again, where he's gone out.
I'm not talking about winning. I'm not talking about winning it. I'm not talking about winning it. I'm talking about the possibilities.
Top 4 is going to be extremely difficult for you. Exactly the same. It's going to be extremely difficult for Tottenham. No different.
Kevin, Alan, just want to get you on this, because almost forgotten in all of this. I know Kevin's mentioned Mark Hughes, and you've mentioned Mark Hughes as well, in all fairness. But ultimately, if you're going to achieve top 4 status, I want you to get this, to come back on this first of all, Kevin, that ultimately we need to see whether Mark Hughes is going to be having the final say on the type of players that come in, team selection on any given game. Are you confident that that will happen? OK, there's an awful lot to see, but are you confident that's going to happen? And if it does, that'll mean you'll get the top 4 finish. How concerned are you about Mark Hughes and what kind of role he will be playing?
Well, I think Mark Hughes set the stall out 2 or 3 weeks ago when there was talk that Stephen Ireland was going to be sold and that Kaluka was being sold without his knowledge, and Mark Hughes stepped in and the whole situation was dealt with then. Kaluka didn't go because he said he couldn't go at the time. Ireland didn't go. I do believe that Mark Hughes is strong enough to say that he's going to pick this team, that he will give the new owners a wish list of players that he wants.
But you still haven't mentioned Robinho. Why did he go to Manchester City? When he was talking about going to Chelsea last week, that was going to be his football club. That's why he wanted to leave Real Madrid. Yeah, what about the other? Go on.
Ultimately, Chelsea were saying that they wanted to sign him, but when push came to shove, they didn't offer the money for him that was needed. So Robinho made a decision to come to a club who did want him. Have
you read the articles in the paper this morning about people in Brazil talking about Robinho joining Manchester City? I think Manchester City are a lovely club. I think you have a fantastic stadium, you have fantastic supporters, but you now, because a billionaire comes along, you're talking about pie in the sky, to be honest.
I don't think it is pie in the sky, Alan. And there's nothing wrong with dreaming as a football fan.
Not at all.
Actually,
absolutely.
I think there's a real possibility here. Listen, there's nothing guaranteed in football. Who knows? We might get thumped in the next 3 games. But I think there is a real chance that if we have a good start to the season, that if we get to December and we're challenging in 4th, 5th, 6th, then I think we can invest in January and move on. I really do.
So, Kevin, finally then, it's been a terrific debate, and thanks ever so much for taking part and holding your own against the great Adam Mullery. You're confident then of a top 4 finish, and do you think you might even finish better than 4th?
No, listen, now we are getting a little bit carried away. I'm optimistic that we can challenge for a top 4 place. I'm very optimistic. I'm not saying that we're going to do it, but I do think we're in with a real good shot.
I could say exactly the same thing about Tottenham. I'm optimistic that we'll challenge for the top 4. Probably what it says to me inside my heart, we won't get in the top 4 this season. I think you better think a bit like that at Manchester City as well.
So where are they going to finish, Alan, for you? I know hard to say, but what kind of area do you think?
I mean, they'll have a wonderful... I mean, if it gets to January, you know, you're looking at it and saying, well, this guy with all the dough... I mean, Mark Hughes, I mean, he's woken up in fantasy land, isn't he? You know, he's got so much money that he can spend.
Like a kid in a sweet shop.
Exactly, they'll be there or thereabouts, there's no doubt about that. Tottenham...
See, you've changed your mind already.
And on that mind in the least. No.
We'll have to leave it there. Kevin Parker, Alan Mullery, it's been terrific entertainment. Thanks ever so much.
Well, that's what those two think about it. What do you think? Can City stay in the top 4 this season? Email us at you2us@skysports.com, or you can text 84408. I guess this debate could run and run.